As a front of Israel's expanding occupation of Palestine, the West Bank has been overshadowed by the decimation in Gaza. But here's a snapshot of what MEE has reported in just 2 weeks. Last week, a 7-month-old Palestinian baby named Sam was shot and killed by an Israeli soldier in Hebron. His father had stopped the car when signaled, raised his hands, and was shot at immediately. The army says the incident is under review. Soldiers are indicted in less than 1% of wrongdoing complaints, and impunity is not incidental. Israeli settlers attacked a Palestinian Christian village of Taipei, just as a UN report found Israeli state authorities to be directly involved in settler attacks. Settler killings of Palestinians rose 130% in 2025, with attacks now near daily. Another landmark report came from Amnesty on Wednesday. It describes a state-driven ethnic cleansing campaign targeting Bedouin communities in Area C, comprising around 60% of the territory. And the violence is not just military or territorial, it's economic as well. Since October 2023, most Palestinian work permits have been cancelled or suspended. Israeli forces have been ordered to shoot at workers attempting to climb the separation wall. And at the end of May, MEE reported 27-year-old Imad Ishtayeh, who was trying to find work after his building collapsed, was shot climbing the separation wall. He died on the operating table. As all of this is happening, an event is coming to London this Sunday. The Great Israeli Real Estate Event openly markets properties in illegal West Bank settlements to international buyers. This despite new anti-settlement sanctions just issued by the UK government, which has declared for the first time there should be no economic involvement in illegal settlements. It's unclear what this means for the Great Israeli Real Estate Event. These stories have all been reported in just the past fortnight, yet they comprise only a handful of happenings in the occupied West Bank. Fortunately, I'm joined today by someone who's on the ground on a near-daily basis.
So we got raided by the Israeli army and settlers last night. They stormed the village, they locked us inside the house, they forbade us from coming out and filming and even opening windows. And then dozens of settlers flooded this space, which they claim is the site of an ancient Jewish synagogue. Now, is it a synagogue? First of all, that's beside the point. Even if it were, why are you storming the village in the middle of the night with guns? And if your argument is that Jews are unsafe coming here in any other way, hi, I'm Jewish. Jewish safety is a bullshit excuse Israel uses to colonize Palestinian land.
Andrey X is an independent journalist and activist who uses social media, as well as the protection of his Israeli citizenship, to act as the world's window in the occupied West Bank. Andrey, welcome to MEE Live. It's great to have you. Now, you just heard me mention this story of the 7-month-old baby who was shot and killed by Israeli soldiers. The Israeli military says it's under review. You're on the ground regularly. Are you surprised and shocked by this incident of violence? And what does it mean in practice when an Israeli military abuse is under review?
Under review is a media term that the Israeli state is using whenever there is too much attention on something, because it allows them to delay acting upon anything. Whenever Israeli soldiers commit war crimes and it gets a lot of attention in international media, the Israeli state says that, oh, we're launching an investigation. Usually these investigations just don't even come to any conclusions. They just fizzle out whenever the attention goes away from the event, and the convictions are extremely, extremely rare. There was the famous case when an entire family was massacred in Tamun in a car in an identical situation. It was just a few months ago. And the result of that was the suspension of the soldiers involved with pay for about a month. So they just got a vacation as punishment for massacring an entire Palestinian family. And this is something that we see all over the West Bank. Of course, the Israeli military is not going to investigate itself. Israel is not going to investigate with any proper procedure their own soldiers and their own settlers, because these attacks against Palestinians are part of the state's projects. They are there on behalf of the state, terrorizing the Palestinians and trying to push them away. So of course Israel is not going to investigate itself for doing what it's trying to do.
Now, you don't just report on these incidents of violence, you also cover the day-to-day realities under occupation. I mentioned in the intro there this phenomenon of men looking for work, trying to climb the separation wall, often fatally at the risk of their own life. Can you just talk us through the economic day-to-day realities for Palestinians today living under the occupation?
yeah, the economy is absolutely destroyed. There is a lot of unemployment. People are barely able to survive. And I've met some people who got shot at as they were trying to climb the wall. And what they said is, we will continue to try, even though we've had our relatives or friends killed, because there is no way to survive otherwise. They have to do something. They're living under this occupation where 60% of the land is practically unavailable to them. And in the rest of it, there are constant invasions, and tourist cities like Bethlehem and Ramallah barely get any economy at all because, they're not. Tourist cities are in a very difficult situation because the tourists are not coming, and there's a deep crisis just with very simple things. You have the Bedouin communities in Area C that Amnesty made a report about recently, and yes, you have the side that gets into the news with the big attacks and pogroms and people being shot up, but the other side of that is the lack of water access, the fact that Israel is refusing to provide electricity for these communities, even though in theory and in international law it's Israel's responsibility to provide services to these communities. Mm-hmm. But of course they're completely cut off, and whenever they try to set up their own solar panels, these solar panels get smashed by either the army or the settlers. And it's very difficult. It would be very difficult to survive even if there weren't attacks. And together with attacks, we're seeing mass expulsions of these communities.
Now, the picture you paint is clear that the violence happening by settlers is an extension of the violence being done by the state. There is often an attempt to separate the two when it is covered in international media. But that Amnesty report we were just talking about, it says, and I'm going to quote this line, "What we are witnessing is deliberate state-led annexation in complete violation of international law unfolding before the eyes of the entire world." It's true that the world has witnessed what has been happening in the territory to a new level than it has in the past. And I wonder whether you think the international community is finally beginning to accept this framing, that this is state-perpetuated abuse, or do you think we are still addressing a world refusing to see what's happening?
I mean, what is happening has been fairly obvious, I think, for decades, but the world has been refusing to see that, and continues to a large extent refuse to see that, even though Israeli state actors are openly talking about this. We had, maybe we reported on this a few minutes ago, but Ben Gvir yesterday said that it's good that we're killing people in Lebanon and blowing up their houses, but we should also start kidnapping women and children from there. And it's, they're very openly talking about these things. The settler leaders are very openly talking about the fact that we are supported by the state, we're doing this and this, we are destroying the Arab households and taking over the lands, and this is what God told us to do. They're very open about it. But of course, there's also this layer of plausible deniability that whenever there is too much pressure on the settlers for the crimes that they commit from the outside, Israel is able to take a step back, and Netanyahu is able to say, oh, it's just 70 kids who are running around and doing whatever they're doing. Mm-hmm. And this is very useful for them. This is you saw the same kind of thing in Europe in the early 20th century with fascist movements employing brown shirts, which were civilian groups of thugs who would act on behalf of the fascist party or on behalf of the government, but they are technically civilians and they're not part of any official militia. So the government always has plausible deniability. It's like, oh, this is not us, whenever it blows up. And whenever it doesn't blow up, they're just doing very much directly what the government wants. Directly supported by the government, invading together with the army and shooting up Palestinian villages together with the army.
But at the same time as we see this apparent separation, Netanyahu spoke out about Ben Gvir lately, saying, oh, he doesn't represent the state. Well, he is a leader of the state. At the same time as we see that, we now see events like this real estate event coming to London, trying to recruit international civilians to buy properties in illegally occupied Palestinian territory. That's actively bringing foreign buyers, or I suppose what Israel would call diaspora buyers, into these settlement projects. Why is Israel doing that?
Because Israel is very much reliant on the outside in many different ways for its ethnic cleansing of the West Bank and for its genocide in Gaza and for the apartheid that it has created in the land between the river and the sea and all of it. It absolutely requires economic injections, political support, social support, and just demographics. And these land sales of places in the West Bank within settlements, they likely won't be selling you the land that is, right next to a Palestinian community within, like newly occupied by a settler outpost, but they will be selling houses in large settlements like Ariel and Ma'ale Adumim, which are big. They're essentially cities in the West Bank, and that immediately gives you a cash injection because you are selling the property and you are able to use that to develop further, and potentially you get people coming in, and you're increasing the demographic majority in the West Bank, and this is very important for them. This is what they're trying to fight for. They're trying to swing the scales of demographics in the West Bank.
Can I ask you a personal question here? Because you yourself took up the opportunity of Israeli citizenship as your Jewish heritage grants you legally a right of reply that Palestinians don't have under the law. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, when you see events like this, real estate events recruiting international civilians to participate in this settlement project, does it remind you of that moment that you realized you were a participant in something? And I guess, what would you say to people who are considering this, real estate opportunity that is presented to them as a great opportunity for them to, take up?
Mm-hmm. I remember at the beginning when I just got my passport and when I just moved, to me, the process of moving from one place to another seemed like a very neutral thing. Like, I used to live here, now I live here. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to go to the next place. And it took a while, it took some time and talking to people and seeing what's happening to realize that that's not a neutral action at all. Just my mere presence in that land and the process of me getting a passport, me renting an apartment, me participating in the economy it's an act, and it's a very serious act that the whole country and its apartheid and its 100 years old project of ethnic cleansing is reliant on this. It's reliant not just on these few kids who are running around and attacking Palestinians, not just on the army that goes mans the checkpoints and harasses people out of villages, but it is reliant on people who are technically not participating. You can live in Tel Aviv, moreover, you can live in Ma'ale Adumim in the middle of the West Bank and not even see, like, you can completely separate yourself from it and pretend that you're not part of it. But Israel is able to continue its ethnic cleansing of the West Bank and the apartheid system thanks to people who are just going in and living their life, not interacting with anything. Without them, the project wouldn't exist.
Well, that's all we have time for, but I have to just say, journalist to journalist, you're doing a fantastic job, and it's been a real pleasure getting to interview you today.
Likewise, thank you for having me.